This episode of the Grand Rising Show was brought to you by Autochthonous Assembly, where the real work gets done. Autochthonous Assembly is a gathering of the minds that do the work. Now, for many of our first-time subscribers and first-time visitors, you may be wondering who Autochthonous Assembly are. You can find this information about our mission statement and our core values on the website at autochthonousassembly.com/about. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising up Indigenous American voices by using genealogy, also known as family history, or your family tree, which is the study of families and the tracing of their lineages and history. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and pedigrees of its members. Our core values are the foundation of our company, which is essential to our success and serve as a lens through which we evaluate every business decision. Those core values are, but are not limited to, integrity, which is knowing and doing what is right; respect, which is treating others the way you want to be treated; responsibility, which is embracing opportunities to contribute; and servant leadership, which is serving the common good. Now, at Autochthonous Assembly, we have a couple of goals here. And our first goal and foremost of the reason why we do everything that we do is to ensure that we help you do your genealogy and connect back to your tribe and find out where you are from. Everything that we do from the standpoint of the Grand Rising Show and all the information that's posted on the website is dedicated to that one specific purpose: helping you find your genealogy, find your relatives, find your family so that you will know exactly who you are. And if you choose to, tie back into your tribe, whether that tribe is a Native American tribe, an American Indian tribe, whether it's allowing you to determine which house in Africa that you belong to, or what clan of Scandinavia or Europe or France that you belong to. Either way, our goal is to do just that: help you find out who you are so you know exactly where to start. We are not here to tell you who you are, and we're not here to tell you who you are not. We're just here to help you discover your beginnings. Another one of our missions is to help you become financially independent so that you can help your generations for the next 7 generations and be able to put a stable foundation for you and your relatives. And if you should choose to use this information that we provide free of charge to help not only yourself, but your community and your tribe, then we will do everything in our power to make sure that gets done as well. And remember, our goal here is to make sure that we help you get exposed to this information to put you in the best situation possible. So now what I'm going to do now is return it back over to the panel to see if there was anything I missed, and I will go ahead and get set up so we can get ready and get digging into this information. Panel, take it away.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
Grand Rising, Grand Rising. Hopefully everyone's doing well this rising. Grand Rising. Hopefully everyone's doing well this rising.
Echo,
Yeah,
echo.
I know. Give me a second.
Over here turning my stuff down, thinking it was me. Over here turning my stuff down.
No, it's me. I got it. How about that? Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Already he cutting up, y'all.
Grand Rising, everyone. Peace. What's up, bro? What's up, TMH?
Peace, everyone. Grand Rising.
Was it happy with Friday? That it? That how you say it? No? Okay.
My bad, what?
Kind of chilly. This was Friday.
Oh, what Friday? Yeah, it is. It's
How do I end up getting sucked into stuff and then y'all all of a sudden stop participating? Then I just be the only person saying stuff.
This is how we do it.
Well, I was about to say the same thing. Oh, man.
I'm resisting. I'm the last holdout, and all of a sudden, then when I get into it, y'all be like, "What you doing?" Okay. Honestly, yeah, that seems to be the the way things are operating right now, doesn't it?
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm. It's okay though. Yeah. I know y'all love me. It's alright.
Grand Rising to the chat. All these beautiful people.
Beautiful. All the beautiful people.
Beautiful people.
I want to say Grand Rising and peace to all the new subscribers. Glad you subscribed. And we definitely appreciate you. Hope you have an opportunity to check out the website and get more information about who we are, what we're about, and what we're looking to accomplish. So I want to say peace and grand rising to the Autochthonous Assembly silent majority. We see you, even though we can't see you. So keep sending in those emails and keep posting the forums. We definitely appreciate all the work that you do. And to the best chat ever on planet Earth and Earth. Hope everyone's doing well. So do you want to do the roll call this rising? That's all out? Or you want me to do it?
I can handle it. I can handle it, I think.
All right. Appreciate you. Good looking out. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
On the top. Hold up, man. I ain't got everybody. Now I feel bad. Because I know Ohio Player was the first one in here. I think it was Liz Robinson, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, it was Liz. Liz was the first.
Shout out to Liz Robinson, but I'm just gonna go from what I got right here. Peace to the Ohio Player from Hot Links, Copper Chopper 803, Grand Rising, Mr. TJ. What everybody's name is? Okay. Mr. TJ, Grand Rising. Pamela Hall, Peace Relative. Cab, Grand Rising Show. Who is that?
Really?
Nature's Void, Grand Rising. Pamela Hall. Again, sorry. Liz Robinson, Grand Rising. Oak Cliff, Grand Rising. Matter of fact, let me read this roll call Liz Robinson got. Mr. TJ, Michael Brown Harris, Star Strike, Grand Rising. Lady J, Grand Rising. Celestial Love, you were here early, Grand Rising. Enrique, Peace. KSR, Peace. David Corey, you were in here early too, Grand Rising. Oak Cliff, I already said your name. James Flames, greetings. I think I'm getting there. I think I'm getting there. Elboria, Grand Rising. There's a new name. Yeah. My thumb is getting sore. I think I got everybody so far. If I missed your name, TMH told me to do it. Peace, y'all. Go ahead, TMH.
You know you're wrong, right?
Huh?
You know you're wrong. If I miss your name, TMH told me to do it. Really?
Oh, I didn't hear me say that. What you talking about?
Okay.
I think I got it.
Okay. All right,
Except
fair.
for the group of people that was at the top that got deleted for some reason. But y'all know who he is. I'm not seeing any new pop-ins, but yes.
And how you gonna take somebody else's list and read off of that?
It was easy. It was easy to look because I saw a group of people and I was like, this might be what I need to see right here. Plug and play, man. Look, Lady J got one too. But I read all those names. But Grand Rising Lady J. Shout out to the shout outs.
Mm-hmm. It's just you didn't do that, ain't no. Mm-hmm. You do that, ain't nobody wants to sit behind him. What's the answer number 3?
Well, stop getting stuff wrong. I won't ask you. Stop getting stuff right. The chat always got stuff right. It's all right. What's up, Bones? See?
Man,
See how they do me? You see how they do me?
How we do you? Oh, okay. This is okay.
I'm just trying to be like TMH.
No, you need to be better than TMH. Don't do that. You don't want to downgrade. You need to upgrade, don't downgrade.
Don't do that. Oh man.
David Core says, what if they got, he basically said, what if they got it wrong? He was asking what if they got the list wrong. But anyway.
Yeah, well, hopefully I don't end up reading another chat's list or something. Somebody copied and pasted the wrong list. Well, these people ain't in this room. What's going on?
Did anybody get a chance, for those of you that in the chat, in the silent majority, did anybody get a chance to look at the video that Bones released yesterday evening in regards to the Creek Indians? Anybody see that? Put ones in the chat if you saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah, Nature's Vid said it was interesting. Pamela said, yes, I saw it. Okay. All right, Liz saw it. All right, cool.
The creeks was a problem, said Nature's Void. Yeah, it was very interesting video. David put 6s in there. You watched it? Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting just to see how it was, how the story was portrayed. I mean, I think she did a good job considering.
Yeah.
She basically confirmed a lot of the things that we were talking about based off of the information that we received. So that was rewarding. Some tidbits she put out was that McIntosh was a traitor and they ended up having him beheaded. And one of the things that Bones and I was talking about last night was that the Indians had their own police force. So not only they had their own government, they had their own police force. So it just goes to show you that the way that history, American history, shall I say, is trying to, or was trying to portray the Indians was as savages, but in actuality, they were more organized and structured, is a term I want to use, than the colonies. So, and her admitting to, just the way the whole land grab situation took place was very interesting. The one thing I did forget to look up was the Civilization, what's it called? The Civilization Act, Bones? Was it the Civilization Act? I think that was?
Yeah, Civilization Act, yeah.
That was interesting. And it talked about some of the things that we had been exposed to when we was talking about the Indian Wars, especially with corn planter and saving the man and killing the Indian, basically civilizing the Indian out of the man and making them more of a European, having a European mindset. They went to producing crops that were for sale versus crops that was for consumption and tribal need. And instead of owning acres of land, owning a plot just for your family. And so it was, yeah. It's just amazing the lengths that our government has gone through to steal. And then unless they've gone through to hide and conceal. So that's a great point, David. He says the next brick we take down that we were wild Indians. Well, we already know that we weren't wild. If nothing else, the Natchez proved that you can't be wild Indians and build roads and pyramids and forts that cannons can't knock down. So, Right. So again, thanks Bones for putting that out and giving us that information, giving us that perspective, because what it does is also helps with what we're trying to do here on the Camp Grand Rising show, is give you different perspectives, give you different points of views, not make it seem like we're trying to create a narrative. And Sellout made a good point last night. It's like, if you're going to disagree, then you're going to have to disagree with the state archives. Good luck with that one. So you're going to call the whole state of Alabama a lie? Okay. So. Bones, you had an opportunity, or you took the opportunity, the time out of your much maligned and busy schedule, because you get up at 4:00 in the morning and start working. And for whatever reason, I think you and Tipton on the same time frame. You coming out of meetings at 6 a.m. But anyway, that's another story. But you had showed us an email that you received from a chief. Would you do me a favor and be so kind as to share with the chat, the new subscribers, and the silent majority exactly what was in that letter and what that letter said, and I will go on mute.
Basically, sent the letter off to Chief Langley, interested in bringing them in, having an interview, speaking with the relatives, and he responded. So basically, we should be getting some information back on him coming in to do the interview. Gave us a link for some more information. Sorry about the background.
So you also have his contact information, correct? That you can actually reach out to him and reach him personally. Am I understanding that correctly as well?
Yeah, gave his personal number, can reach him at any time for a conversation. Yeah, but basically reached out to have him speak to the relatives a lot more about genealogy and the ups and downs and the process of it.
Okay. So that's some progress on what's going on in the community and what we're striving to do to bring different perspectives to you when it comes to helping everyone do their genealogy and find out where they belong. Because obviously, if nothing else, look at it this way. And if I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. The mere fact that when I say I'm talking about the powers that be in the government, making it almost impossible to find out what tribe you belong to. That should be the main reason you want to find out what tribe you belong to, because there's got to be a reason why they're making it impossible. They're hiding it from you. They're making such a diligent and valiant effort to hide who you are from you and tie us as a people to a people that there is no proof that exists or existed. The people that existed that there's proof of, they don't want us to tie into. If nothing else, wouldn't that make you curious? Outside of being furious, wouldn't that make you just curious to see why they're doing it, just to keep looking for who you are and how you tie into a tribe, if nothing else, except for the fact that they're trying to keep you from doing it? Or is that just me and the way I look at things?
Claiming an African American by default, saying your history started with slavery. Because before slavery, the African American didn't exist.
You just gonna drop that bomb and just gonna go on mute, huh? That's what we doing this rising. Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks. Bounce. Well, my take on this: find out who you are, so you can find out what's taken from your family, so you can look at getting it back. Keep it simple and plain. That's what I'm looking at it from. So. Let's go ahead and hit this clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Give me one moment. So here we go. Grand Rising Charles Clark. So, let's go ahead and get with the getting. So we're gonna go over the actual Creek War. Yesterday we covered what the RedSticks were and how the RedSticks played a part in it. When they talk about RedSticks, they're referring to the Lower Creek tribes, basically the Alabama, not just Creek, but all the Indians that were in that territory, in that area at that time. They just say Creek because they want to confuse, confound, and conflict. So all the Alabama in that area that would have fallen up under that lower area were opposed to what the Europeans were trying to do as far as the assimilation or Civilization Act. So they were referred to as RedSticks, and they're the ones that had the political clout. Whereas, those are the Northern Creek. The Southern Creeks are the ones that were pro-colonizer, pro-assimilation, pro-giving up everything as far as their culture, which is one of the things that the Alabama, the lady for the Alabama directory, archive directory, she had confirmed that they wanted the Indians to denounce who they were and become more American or more civilian and just forego their ways. So E.J. Coppertone says the Upper Creek were mainly Alabama. But when we say Alabama, Alabama was just a larger amalgamation or a larger confederacy. It just does not include. It does not mean that they're all Creek. There were a lot of other additional tribes to the Alabama.
Yeah, even when they say Creek, don't mean they all Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Then we report that the Natchez end up living with them. A lot of times what happens is people just lump them all under one name.
Exactly. So when we say Alabama, we talk about all of the tribes that went from South and Central America and moved north because they were forced to move north. So there could be a lot of tribes.
Yeah, same thing as Mississippian. The Mississippian culture isn't one set of people. It's all the people in the area.
Mm-hmm. So, and also too, you get rid of Alabama. The term Alabama is harder for those that are looking for Alabama or looking for that tribe to tie in. So we have to look into the this state archives to find Alabama in there. Because I doubt we're going to find it in the federal census.
Good thing about it, last night Alabama let you know they got no records.
Mm-hmm. So can we access that via the internet, or is that something we have to make a trip to Alabama to go there?
Yeah, a lot of these type of records you're gonna have to be physically willing to go. See, the problem with it is now, a lot of us came apart of genealogy with the digital age, and really, it's better to start hands-on, paper and pen. The problem with the digital age, and it was shown yesterday, the digital copies will say African American until you open up the records and you'll see what they were actually marked down as.
So
that's why I say again, get a copy of the original records. The digital records, they are changing to African American. Get a copy of the original records.
You heard that. So get a copy. All right. So no sellout. Will you be able to read this rising for us?
We got about 20 minutes, yes.
You punch it, so you punch the clock for real. You got 20 minutes, all right.
Yeah, so I'll be back though.
Yeah, I got you. You'll be back. Okay. So I put the.
I'm not going anywhere, but I'll be able to read after 20 minutes from now.
I got you. So how about we go ahead and get started?
Let's do that.
And I put the link in the chat already for final review from the chat, so they can do their own research. And there are resources, or there are sources from the page, so that you can actually go look this information up. 51 sources. So other books that they can refer you to. So David Kerr said he always have only 20 minutes. That's not true, David. Anyway. Ready when you are, no sellout.
We're at the top Creek Wars, right?
Yep. At the tippy top. Doodle Vision says 51 sources. What is this? A cookout? No, it's not a cookout. Got no sellout?
Yeah, I got it. I'm still having David Kerr. It's only 20 minutes. I ain't always. Yeah. Oh man. And sources sounds like sources from somebody from up north. Sources. Sauce. Never mind. The Creek War, 18. Mic check.
You good?
I think I could come in a little better. I don't know. I'll check. The Creek War, 1813 to 1814, also known as the RedStick War and the Creek Civil War, was a regional war between opposing Creek factions, European empires, and the United States, taking place largely in today's Alabama and along the Gulf Coast. The major conflicts of war took place between state militia units and the quote-unquote RedStick Creeks.
Okay, so we know that the RedStick Creeks were the northern Creeks who disagreed, or the northern Alabama, we'll just say that, the northern Alabama who disagreed with the Civilization Act or trying to make the Indians more to civilians than Indian. They were against the kill the Indian, save the man philosophy. So, all right, so go ahead, proceed, please.
Alright. The Creek War was part of the centuries-long American Indian Wars. It is usually considered part of the War of 1812 because it was influenced by Tecumseh's War in the Old Northwest, was concurrent with the American-British War, and involved many of the same participants. And the RedSticks had sought British support and aided Admiral Cochrane's advance towards New Orleans.
Stop.
Uh-huh.
We also found out that Chief Weatherford was related to Tecumseh. So if you're having the same people, same participants be a part of the war, right? Wouldn't that make it the same war? Especially if it's happening at the same time frame. Am I missing something or no? Okay. Just my 2 cents. And then it goes on to talk about ties with the American-British War. And then that was support aided by Admiral Cochrane's advance towards New Orleans. Who's Admiral Cochrane? Let's see. I know I just cut into your reading time, so I'm aware of that. No,
you over here clicking Cochrane. I clicked Tecumseh. So which one-way street you going down?
Well,
this way, you do that way.
Sir Alexander Inglis Cochrane, born Alexander Forster Cochrane, was a senior Royal Navy commander during the Napoleonic Wars and achieved the rank of admiral. He was knighted for his service. Alexander Inglis Cochrane was a younger son of the Scottish peer Thomas Cochrane, the 8th Earl of Dundonald, and his second wife, Jane Stewart. He joined the Royal Navy as a boy and served with the British Naval Forces in North America. He served during the American War of Independence. Now, Bones, you always mention the royal families or the I forgot how you break it down. Did it come to me?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of it too. And I'm gonna be just stuck with you. I can't.
The royal, basically the royal houses. So he was
13 seats.
Yeah. So this would be a part of one of those 13 seats, right? Talking about Earl of Down. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it says he also participated in the Egyptian operations in 1801. Wait, stop. The Egyptian operations. So we know where Egypt is located, right?
Yep.
That's in the northern part of what is modern day Africa, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So even in the 1800s, there's still no colonization of the middle or lower part of Africa. Because if it were, it would have been stated here, right? Don't you think? I'm just saying.
Yep.
Okay, just checking. Then it says, when Alexandria fell, Cochrane and the 74-gun third-rate HMS Ajax with the 6th-rate HMS Bon Cytoyini, HMS Cynthia, the Bring Slots sloops, HMS Port Mahon, and HMS Victorious, these are all ships, and 3 Turkish corvettes were the first vessels to enter the harbor. It says by 1802 to 1803, Cochrane alienated the Spanish governor of Ferrol, Galicia, when one of his commanders intercepted 4 ships of the Spanish treasure fleet returning from South America. Before they reached Cadiz, The effect of Cochrane's actions was to bring Spain back into the war on France's side in 1804. Cochrane also had been incensed that the brilliant Sir Edward Pellew, a Tarpaulin officer, had been preferred over himself, a well-connected aristocrat, as Admiral of the White to the East India Station. Cochrane tried to implicate Sir Edward Pellew, who had good relations with the governor of Faro, in fraud, then making seriously damaging and unfounded allegations against Sir Edward Pellew's secretary Fitzgerald. These were never substantiated and destroyed Fitzgerald's career, but didn't accomplish the destruction of his target, who later became Viscount Exmouth. This is nothing more. This account right here, right? This account right here tells me everything I need to know, because I can't speak on behalf of anybody else. It tells me everything I need to know on how treacherous these Europeans are. He got overlooked basically for promotion. And because he got overlooked for a promotion, he set out to destroy the person that got promoted over him. So if they're willing to do that to their own people, there is nothing we should put past what they're willing to do to us and our ancestors. I just wanted to put that out there. Those are the type of individuals that we are dealing with. So, yeah, I just leave it at that. So that's who he is. Did you want to? Well, you probably not able to read right now. Just let me know when you're able to do some more reading. Bones. I mean, no sellout, and I'll go ahead and I'll pick it up from here. David Corey says, "Oh, you didn't know about the Europeans." It's not that I didn't know about them, David Corey. You know how it goes. You just keep finding confirmation of what type of people they are. They just never ceases to disappoint. That's all. I'm just disappointed. That is all. Because you know what their theme song is.
Why you always lying?
So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the Creek War. And come across something that's interesting that strikes your fancy, let me know. It says the Creek War began as a conflict within the Creek Confederation, but local white militia units quickly became involved. British traders in Florida, as well as Spanish government, provided the RedStick with arms and supplies because of their shared interest in preventing the expansion of the United States into their areas. The United States government formed an alliance with Choctaw Nation and Cherokee Nation, the traditional enemies of the Creeks, along with the remaining Creeks to put down the rebellion. So, I wanted to touch on that right quick because as we learn, it's not just the Creek Nation, it's the Alabama, those southeastern Indians who migrated from the Yucatan or from Chichen Itza, that area over there, migrated north. So keep this in mind. The enemy of what they call the Creek is basically the enemy of the Alabama. So who would those be? That would be the Choctaw Nation that has split and we're working with the Cherokee Nation and also the Sioux and the Iroquois. So just keep that in mind. These Indians are enemies of the Alabama. So figure that deserves repeating. Goes on to read that the war effectively ended with the Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814. Andrew Jackson forced the Creek Confederacy to surrender more than 21 million acres in what is now southern Georgia and central Alabama. 21 million acres. That's a lot of land. So you're talking southern Georgia and central Alabama is what these Indians had to give up. Sad. Grand Rising, Chicago. Okay. The RedStick militancy was a response to the increasing United States culture and territorial encroachment into their traditional lands. The alternate designation as the Creek Civil War comes from the division within the tribe over cultural, political, economic, and geographic matters. At the time of the Creek War, the Upper Creeks controlled the Coosa, Tallapoosa, and Alabama rivers that led to Mobile, while the Lower Creeks controlled the Chattahoochee River, which flowed into the Apalachicola Bay. The Lower Creek were trading partners with the United States, and unlike the Upper Creek, had adopted more of their cultural practice. Now, if we remember in the video that was posted last night, coming with the information coming from the Alabama Archives, it said that the Creek had a business relationship with the British, a business trading relationship. So
they had an Indian market at that.
Mm-hmm. So that is something that does not appear to be talked about at this point in this Wikipedia link. So just wanted to remind you of that. So territorial conflict. Doodle Vision says, guess what the product was? Deerskin. Right?
Deerskin and slaves. The Creek was gathering slaves for the British, capturing other Indians for slavery.
Yep. He says hemp and tobacco too. So, I mean, that makes sense. All right. It says territorial conflict. The provinces of East and West Florida were governed by Spanish and British firms like Patton, Leslie and Company. They provided most of the trade goods into Creek country. Pensacola and Mobile in Spanish Florida controlled the outlets of U.S. Mississippi's territory, established in 1798. Territorial conflicts between France, Spain, Britain, and the United States along the Gulf Coast, that had previously helped the Creeks to maintain control over most of the United States. Southwestern territory has shifted dramatically due to the Napoleonic Wars, the Florida Rebellion, and the War of 1812. This made long-standing Creek trade and political alliances more tenuous than ever. So what alliances and trades are they talking about? They're talking about the trades they had with the British, right? We had to surmise anything that would be what we would connect that to. Let's scroll some more. During the American Revolution, the United States wished to maintain the Indian line. What is the Indian line? I guess we'll continue to find out. And this had been established by the Royal Proclamation of 1763. So I guess I click on the Royal Proclamation and we'll find out what the Indian line is. But let's first finish reading. The Indian line created a boundary for colonial settlement in order to prevent illegal encroachment into Indian lands. It also helped the U.S. government maintain control over the Indian trade. Traders and settlers often violated the terms of the treaties establishing the Indian line, and frontier settlements by colonies into Indian lands once was one of the arguments the United States used to expand its territory. Now, if you remember when we talked about the Indian Wars and we went over and we covered different tribes, specifically the tribes that I remember this occurring to the most were the Indian tribes of the north of the Mason-Dixon. Six Nations, Five Nations, all those tribes. We even read about certain squatting and moving of property. So that's what they were experiencing during that time. So I'm going to click on the Royal Proclamation of 1763, put the link in the chat, further review. Royal Proclamation of 1763 was issued by King George III on October 7th, 1763, following Great Britain's acquisition of French territory in North America after the end of the French and Indian War and the 7 Years' War. This proclamation rendered all land grants given by the government to British subjects who fought for the crown against France worthless. Wait, what? Said this proclamation rendered all land grants given by the government to British subjects who fought for the crown against France worthless. It forbade all settlement west of the line drawn along the Appalachian Mountains, which was delineated as an Indian reserve. Quick question. Could this have been in retaliation for the Creeks' alliance with the Brits and having such a strong trade that this was one way to interfere with that? Because if you... Go ahead, Bones.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because you have British making deals with particular Indians, you have the French making deals with particular Indians, and you have the so-called Americans making deals with certain Indians.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. We're going to go with that for now. So, dirty, dastardly deeds. Exclusion from the vast region of Trans-Appalachia filled people with various colonies with indignation. Discontent would later arise during the American Revolution. I wonder why. The Royal Proclamation continues to be of legal importance to First Nations in Canada. The 1763 Proclamation line is similar to the Eastern Continental Divide's path running northwards from Georgia to the Pennsylvania-New York border and northeastwards past the drainage divide of the St. Louis Divide, the St. Lawrence Divide, from there northwards through New England. Go ahead and read the background of Treaty of Paris, and we're going to move forward. It says the 7 Years' War, with the French and Indian Wars as a North American theater, ended with the Treaty of Paris. Remember, the Treaty of Paris also ended the Revolutionary War. The war where the United States gains its independence from quote-unquote Great Britain. Under this treaty, France ceded ownership of all continental North America east of the Mississippi River, which including Quebec, the rest of Canada to Britain. Spain received all French territory west of the Mississippi. Both Spain and Britain received some French islands in the Caribbean. France kept a few small islands used by fishermen, modern-day Haiti and the rich sugar islands of Guadeloupe. I gotta do that one more time. I thought when you lose a war, the victor doesn't give up anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the colonies fought on the side of France. France enlisted Spain, and everybody fought against the Brits. How is it that France ends up giving all this land to Britain when Britain lost, if they lost?
But what is Britain? Isn't the crown of Britain run by the French? So again, what is Britain?
Right. And again, I'm asking the question from a standpoint of the way that they write the story or the way they teach it makes no sense. The victor does not succeed any land. The victor gains and conquers. This was not a war. This was a contract. They weren't fighting.
Transfer of companies, DBAs again.
Because why would you cede land when you want it kicking somebody's behind? So you mean to tell me Great Britain loses a war, but they gain Quebec, the rest of Canada, some Caribbean islands, and some French islands? And you, man, let me lose a war and gain that. I'm just saying. Tell them what they won. You lost the war, but you won all of North America. That don't sound fishy? Maybe it's me. I'm sorry. Exactly, Afro-Rican peace. Something shady happened. See how that works? So, I'm going to continue. What? Really? You came off of mute to laugh.
Oh, what?
You came off of mute to laugh. That's what we doing. Bounce, get your friend.
Oh man, hashtag.
Yeah, Pamela Hall hit it right on the head. One cousin just transferred land to another cousin. That's it.
Maybe I need to reach out to my cousins. Anyway. Yeah, it don't seem like no family feud to me. Seem like seem like the shell game and everybody in on it except for the one person that's picking. Seem like even the audience is in on it. I'm just saying.
What they need to do.
Go ahead.
To actually see it, remove the DBAs and go back to the 13 houses. See what houses are in charge at the time of these transfers, and you'll see what's really going on. The countries are just DBAs. It's them 13 houses that's actually doing all the maneuvering in the background, using states to hide behind, states and countries to hide behind.
Doodle Vision makes a good point. He says NFL collective bargaining. Agreements equals peace treaties. Teams can swap land. Raiders moving to Los Angeles. Las Vegas. Trade players, slaves, and gear products. Wow. That's a good point, James.
Yep. They're rivals on game day. Other than that, they're corporate partners.
The game is a spectacle to divert your attention from what's really going on. I get it.
Just like the NFL. How does a team lose when they split shared revenue at the end of the year?
Yeah. I don't know too many teams that's that sad at the end of the year, Super Bowl or not.
Yeah, think about it. The NFL has shared revenue. All teams share in the sales of jerseys, NFL products, commercial times, game times, ticket sales.
Well, I always tell you, if you really want to know how business works, look at the Constitution and bylaws of the NFL. Roger Goodell controls everything when it comes to the NFL, even down to the refs. But he is 100% indemnified because he doesn't own any of the teams. He got hired by the team owners, but it takes a vote to fire him. So he's the face of the NFL. And he makes, what is it, $13 million a year? So.
Yep.
What all the players need to do is just walk out. But they're part of a collective bargaining agreement. They can't do that.
Yep, no, they're not. They already signed that right away.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let me go ahead and continue to read. During and after the American Revolution, the United States wished to maintain the Indian line, which had been established by the Royal Proclamation of 1763. The Indian line created a boundary for a colonial statement in order to prevent illegal encroachment in Indian lands and to also help the United States government maintain control over the Indian trade. Traders and settlers often violated the terms of the treaties establishing the Indian line and frontier settlements by colonials in Indian lands was one of the arguments the United States used to expand its territory. Then it goes on to read about in the Treaty of New York in 1790, the Treaty of Coleraine in 1796, the Treaty of Fort Wilkinson in 1802, and the Treaty of Fort Washington, 1805. Excuse me. The Creeks ceded their Georgia territory east of the Ocmulgee River in 1804, and the United States claimed the city of Mobile under the Mobile Act. The 1805 treaty with the Creek had also allowed the creation of the Federal Road that linked Washington to the newly acquired port city of New Orleans, which partially stretched through Creek territories. That's a lot.
Building these roads, dividing up our communities.
So here's an interesting thing. It says, United States claimed the city of Mobile under the Mobile Act. Right?
Mm-hmm.
A federal road that linked Washington to the newly acquired port city of New Orleans. Who do you think built that road? Know what we know now about these ancestors of these Natchez. It's safe to say they probably built the roads, or they used the technology that the Natchez used to build the roads. Let's see. Let's look at the federal road. I'll put the link in the chat for further review. Here we go. It says the federal road through the territory of the Creek people was a project that started in 1805 when the Creek gave permission for the development of a horse path through their nation for the more efficient mail delivery between Washington City, modern-day Washington, D.C., and New Orleans, Louisiana. This section started at Fort Wilkinson near Milledgeville, Georgia. Well, I lived in Milledgeville. That's interesting. And ended at Fort Stuart near Mobile, Alabama. By the time of the war of 1812, the federal road began in Augusta, Georgia, ran through Fort Haskins in Macon, Georgia. I lived there too. To the Fort Mitchell, Alabama, near modern Phoenix City, Alabama, and finally terminated at Pensacola in Spanish West Florida. It said the federal road was the first for mail delivery. It was widened into a war road during 1811 and used during the Creek War. The result was removal of most of the Creek people to the west. Why does that road sound like it's Route 1? Or is that just me?
That's what it sounded like.
Because Route 1 runs all the way from, basically from Canada, all the way down to Florida.
Yep.
And the interstate runs parallel to Route 1.
You take it south enough, they all become one road. The Turnpike, 95, Interstate 175, they all become one road.
That's crazy. So they basically took a path, a horse path, and developed it and made it a federal road.
They hit it on the head, 85 and 75 as well. 75 runs all the way straight through Tifton, straight through Macon.
And it said this federal road was the first for mail delivery. It was widened into a war road during 1811 and used during the Creek War. The result was removal of most of the Creek people to the west. It is. Interesting. So you got the Treaty of Fort Wilkinson that's blocked out. You got the Treaty of Fort Washington that's blocked out. The only treaty they want us to know about is the Treaty of New York in 1790. What else happened in 1790?
Federal census.
The census. Deja vu.
I know, right?
Because Fort Washington will lead you to the Appaloosas, and once you know who the Appaloosas in Louisiana are, the horse breeders, lead you back to us. That's why it's blanked out. I yield the mic. Greetings to everyone.
Thank you. That's crazy, man.
Who was that?
That was Doodoo. James Flames. And look, I'm being goofy and answering.
Mm-hmm.
Look, man, I'm just trying to do what I'm told. I don't want no
I
trouble.
don't want no trouble.
Look. You ain't nobody doing nothing, and I don't want no trouble. So it goes on to read that the Treaty of New York was a treaty signed in 1790 between leaders of the Creek people and Henry Knox, the Secretary of War for the United States under President George Washington. A failed treaty attempt between the United States and the Creek Indians at Rock Landing, Georgia, in 1789 was abruptly ended by the Creek leader Alexander McGillivray. He described his grievances in a letter to the United States Commissioners. Stop. It's safe to say that, because we already know that Alexander McGillivray was a Creek Indian who also had European ancestry. So he writes a letter to the United States government, airing his grievances, because he both spoke what the Creek people spoke and he spoke English. So I just wanted to point that out. It says he described his grievances in a letter to the United States Commissioners. Washington sent a special emissary, Colonel Meredith Willett, to McGillivray, persuading him to come to the New York City, then the capital of the United States, to conduct a treaty with Washington and Henry Knox directly. In the summer of 1787, 27 Creek leaders led by Alexander McGillivray traveled to New York and signed a treaty on behalf of the Upper, Middle, and Lower Creek and Seminole, composing the Creek Nation of Indians. So we know, and James, correct me if I'm wrong, this basically was done not just with the Creek in mind, but this is basically all the Alabama Indians, right? Because you got Upper, Middle, Lower Creek, and the Seminoles. You know, the Seminoles were supposed to be in Florida. So McGilvery was the only one who could sign his name. Creek leaders ceded a significant portion of their hunting grounds, including land stretching to Oconee River, to the United States, and agreed to turn runaway slaves over to federal authorities. Although the Creek leaders averred that convincing the Creek people to honor the new boundary lines to return. Here goes the implementation. To honor the new boundary lines or returning African American slaves would be difficult at best. This is 1787, y'all. Can somebody tell me what's going on in Africa in 1787 that's preventing them from colonizing Africa?
Malaria.
When did they ever get a cure for malaria where it was able to dispense it to everybody? Over 100 years?
1880s, 100 years later.
Okay, so if that is the case, then can somebody please tell me how they have African American slaves running around in the Americas in 1787?
And how you having wars? Where are you docking the ships? Because again, we know who was controlling Biloxi. We know who was controlling Florida. We know the battle over the port of New Orleans. So where were they docking in the South? Where were they going? Where were the ports?
Man, these had to be some. Let's just play though. Let's just play the fantasy game of what if. If by some strange chance of happenstance they were convincing Indians to go capture slaves in Africa, there had to be some fast Indians to catch these fast slaves to bring them back over here. And now these fast slaves are still being caught by these fast Indians, but they're running away.
And they had to cannonball them to land, because how were they going to get in? Because they don't tell you that. How did all of these chiefs, all these Indian chiefs, all the Creek, you think they walked to New York? Or you think they took ships to New York?
They took ships.
And who were the captains of the ships? See, they keep leaving y'all out. They keep leaving the ITSA out.
They don't love us, James. They don't love us, James. It's okay. I'm used to it.
Walking. You got to think, like you say, it literally said whole route 1. Who's walking from Florida all the way to New York? Come on, son. You're going by boat.
Gotta love it. So we know this is BS, as in a bad story. So they weren't African American slaves. They were Indians that were captured from other tribes that were trying to run away. And besides, go ahead. No, you go. Go ahead. Say what you gotta say.
I was gonna say, because again, there were no prisons, and it goes back to the system that was already in place. If you lost the war, you became an indentured servant to the tribe that won the war until you paid off your debt. Period. That's all it was. There was no Africans. When they keep trying to throw these Africans in here, it was not. It was part of the collective bargaining agreement. I'm going to trade these players, and I'm going to get this land, and then I'm going to give you this product, and then I'm going to trade these players. So you give me my piece, my parcel of land over here, and we'll give you all of that. That's all it was.
Mm-mm-mm. Oh yes, here we are. The United States granted the Creeks, the right to punish non-Indian trespassers in their territory, but refused to allow the Creeks to punish non-Indians who committed crimes on Creek lands. For their part, the Creeks agreed to turn over Creek people accused of crimes to the U.S. courts. In a secret side agreement, in a secret side agreement to the treaty, McGilvery received a commission as a brigadier in the U.S. Army with an annual salary of $1,500.
Sorry, could you read that part again about the Creeks agreed to do what?
For their part, the Creeks agreed to turn over Creek people accused of crimes to the U.S. courts.
Wait, can you say that one more time?
And you're making me nervous, James. For their part, the Creeks agreed to turn over Creek people accused of crimes to the U.S. courts.
Could you say slave trade?
That's your slave trade.
I yield the mic.
Didn't the 13th Amendment make that form of slavery legal? Slavery or involuntary servitude is illegal unless convicted of a crime. I
would have never caught that.
Turning on their own people.
For you, Oak Cliff, I'm going to run that back. AKA, reread. Read! For their part, the Creeks agreed to turn over Creek people accused of crimes to the U.S. courts. In a secret-sided agreement to the treaty, McGilvery received a commission as a brigadier in the U.S. Army with an annual salary of $1,500. The treaty also provided the tribes with agriculture supplies and tools. McGilvery was granted permission to import goods through the Spanish port of Pensacola without paying American duties. Good grief. He also received, check this out, $100,000 in compensation for the seized lands of his father. This is in 1778. Do you know how much money $100,000 was back then? Don't ask me because I'm not going to calculate. But it was a lot.
Rich. Mm-hmm.
$1 gazillion. New math.
Oak Cliff says, was he Micmac or Guac because McGilvery? I don't know. Possible. $100,000 in compensation for the seized lands of his father. That's how they got him. That's how they got him to sign that treaty. It says the Treaty of New York was the first treaty between the United States and Native Americans not held in Indian-controlled lands. Hold on. What do you mean not held in Indian-controlled land? Treaty of New York was the first treaty between the United States.
The contract is housed in New York, and at this time, New York isn't controlled by the Indians.
Okay.
Meaning they don't have a copy of the contract. The United States government does.
Oh.
Wait, but wasn't all these Africans being shipped into New York, build all these roads and stuff? I thought that was going on.
That's some Indian prisoners.
Okay, but I thought you mean to tell me they wasn't Africans? Because we were reading already all down in the South that they already had roads. Because it says that these colonizers were taking the roads. So if they didn't control the territory down south, that means that the Indians had to build a road, so they knew how to build roads, right? So that means they start laying the grid of New York, right? I'm just, African slaves, Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
United States, you got some explaining to do.
Oh, it gets better because we skipped over something.
Did we? Or we skip over?
You got to go all the way back to the beginning, right after they started explaining all the dates of the Creek War. There's a little section right there, and you can click on it. I'll give you a clue in just a moment. Hold on, let me get it. Go back to it.
This is a reference to the Creek War, right?
Yes, sir. It was. The Creek War was a long series, right after all the dates and stuff. He said it was a part of centuries plural long American Indian War.
So you want me to click on American Indian Wars, or?
Yes, sir. Click on American Indian Wars. Well, I said this. They tried to divide these wars up, but it was a series of battles within one long war, centuries-long war. And now you're going to start to see who's who and how it lines up. They trying to make it sound like, oh, it's just a creek. It's just a little bit of group over here. But how does this Creek War stretch from Florida all the way to New York City?
All right. The American Indian Wars, also known as the Indian Wars or the First Nation Wars, is a collective name for the various armed conflicts that were fought by European governments and colonists and later by governments and settlers against various American Indian and First Nation tribes. These conflicts occurred in North America from the time of the earliest colonial settlements in the 17th century until the early 20th century. The various wars resulted from a wide variety of factors, including cultural clashes, land disputes, and criminal acts committed by both sides. The European powers in their colonies also enlisted Indian tribes to help them conduct warfare against each other's colonial settlement. This is the first time I've ever seen them admit this. Rewind that right quick. It said the European powers and their colonies also enlisted Indian tribes to help them conduct warfare against each other's colonial settlements. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. The United States or the Americas was not the only place that they were colonizing. So if they're using them against colonial settlements here, isn't it safe to say, or we can deduce, that they're using these Indians to fight or deal with colonies or attack colonies in other countries? I mean, that can be said, right?
Oh, yeah, especially when we get back to this so-called Creek Indian War of 1812, because Paul Cuffey, a.k.a. Alfred Hitchcock, when you look at his profile, if y'all probably don't know who, I'm telling my age now, I know who Alfred Hitchcock is. You got to check out the profile. He was shipping Indians to West Africa under the Dutch West Indian Company. Paul Cuffey. Philadelphia, New York. I yield the mic. I'm sorry. Go ahead with the American Indian Wars, because it's gonna get good.
Just on the date alone should tell you something. From 1609 to 1924. That's how long the American Indian Wars lasted.
These were not slave revolts. This was a continuation of centuries long war. This is why you hear other people from other countries say America has always been at war. And they say, well, what do you mean by that? And they keep saying America has always been at war. And so every other war goes back to what I said before about King Philip's War and how all of this ties in. King Philip's War after 1609. So when they keep talking about this stuff of 20 and odd Negroes, and they started going here, and they were building this fort, and here's what they were doing there, and they're African. All these wars were going on, all of them. And someone asked the question about if these McIntosh, McGilvery, if all of them were Micmacs, they lived among the Micmacs to learn the language. If you notice, they never mentioned any language barriers. Doing all of these conflicts and I call them, like I say again, they're collective bargaining agreements. They say that the Indians couldn't read the contracts, but the people that structured it and was telling them this is what is agreed upon had to translate it orally. I yield the mic. Y'all keep thinking again. Somebody's got to translate something.
That's right. Remember, I said no tribes were innocent in this. All tribes had a hand in the atrocities that affected our ancestors. They were just trying to put themselves in the best position to take care of their families, because they realized that at the rate that these Europeans was coming in, and like Bones and James always mentioned, this happened before the 17 million Europeans came here and started flooding the Americas. This is all before 1820. So, Grand Rising Jamil. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly.
Is that Jamil Holloway, former quarterback of the Oklahoma Sooners?
I don't know, and I don't think so. I think Jamil would have to be the one that answers that. But moving on.
Possibly.
It's possible, but not likely.
It's a 50-50.
So then I'm going to go and continue to read. We're reading the American Indian Wars. I'm going to put this link in the chat for further review. Peep the date. From 1609 to 1924 is how long the American Indian War lasted. After the American Revolution, many conflicts were local to the specific states or regions and frequently involved disputes over land use. Some entailed cycles of violent reprisal. In Canada, 11 numbered treaties covering most of the First Nations lands limited the number of such conflicts. Grand Rising, Kerry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, do your Grand Rising. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I already spoke to Kerry. What you need?
I was just going to say this, that notice that the American Indians and First Nations are two separate groups. Two different groups.
Say that one more time so people can hear you.
The American Indians and the First Nations are two separate groups.
So are the First Nations your Native Americans?
Yahtzee. That would be correct.
And if you remember, the enemies of the Creek are the enemies of the American Indians, which would happen to be your Southeastern Indians, which would be the majority of our ancestors, just like some of these Native Americans would be the majority of our ancestors. The First Nation Indians are your Native Americans, and they are separated where they at? See if I can find it. They're separated. American Indian and First Nation tribes. So why are they separating in these two tribes? Why are they separating these two factions of Indians? What are they trying to say?
Two separate groups of people. Did you find it? Can you look at? I'm sorry, I mean.
Yeah. No. I'm looking at it. I separated. It says I highlighted it so people in the chat can see it. It says the government and settlers against various American Indian and First Nation tribes.
Hold it now.
Grand Rising Original Tillers. So
And it's even has a link to where it breaks down the First Nation people, who they are, and it goes back to what we've been saying all along.
yeah, we talked about the First Nation on one of the channels. It's one of the bills when we were dealing with the American Indian Wars. So yeah, if we need to, we can go back and revisit that. That won't be a problem at all. So then it goes on to read, as American settlers spread westward across America after 1780, 10 years before the 1790 census, armed conflicts increased in size, duration, and intensity between settlers and various Indian tribes. The climax came in the War of 1812, which is basically what we're covering now, aka the Creek War, when major Indian coalitions in the Midwest and the South fought against the United States and lost. Conflict with settlers became much less common and was usually resolved by treaty, often through sale or exchange of territory between the federal government and specific tribes. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 authorized the American government to enforce the Indian removal from east of the Mississippi River to the west of the American frontier, especially Oklahoma. The federal policy of removal was eventually refined in the West, as American settlers kept expanding their territories to relocate Indian tribes to specifically designated and federally protected and subsidized reservations. So then it goes on to read, the colonization of America by the English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Swedish was resisted by some Indian tribes and assisted by other tribes. Y'all see how they did that? I'm going to read this again and tell me if y'all catch it. I'm going to highlight it so y'all can see it. The colonization of America by the English, French, Spanish, Dutch, and Swedish was resisted by some Indian tribes and assisted by other tribes. Who y'all think the other tribes were? They already told you. Anybody? 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 Anybody want to guess? Anybody?
Rhymes with doo-doo, starts with an S.
It's also rhymes with cursed Haitian. Or First Nation.
It's gonna sue you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Pamela Hall. Exactly, First Nation. But it's funny because they don't say that, but they just said other tribes.
But how you gonna be first if you wasn't the first ones here? It's kind of like, somebody beat you in a race. They on the top of the stand getting their gold medal. You just snatch it like a gold chain and start running. I'm first.
Oh, I see we have a guest. Or that you that you know Salah?
Nope.
Okay. So to the guest that just dialed in, last four of the numbers are 6160. Hit *6.
Hey there.
Hello.
Grand Rising.
What's going on, Frida? You are fast becoming one of my favorite guests.
You know what? It's interesting because I've been looking for my tribe to pass, but truth is I'm looking for my current tribe. So I'm looking at this list that I posted.
You cut out, Demi.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm sorry. I hear other people talking. Should I speak or no?
No, go ahead. You got it.
Okay, well, I'm looking at a list that I posted a couple years ago on Indian Wars, and I just posted a list from 1776 to... Right, absolutely, by all means. I just posted from 1776 because, that's what they claim. But yeah, the amount of wars that I am looking at in this list are unfreaking believable, starting from, like I said, 1776, because that's their recorded crap. Chickamauga, how do you say it? The Chickamauga Wars, and then the Cherokee Wars. I mean, it's just outrageous, the amount of wars. So there's absolutely no way that the Creek War could have lasted 1 year. From 1812 to 1813, because things were already going on. And again, it was intertribal.
Well, we definitely agree with that, Frida. I mean, it's just pointing out and showing that there have been wars from 1609 to 1924.
Right. Well, I'm literally looking my list here. Let's see, how far does my list go here? This is crazy. Keep talking. Well, I mean, on American soil, because that's what we're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. 1924, and then you can't even ignore the fact that the 1921, Woodrow Wilson dropping bombs on us in Tulsa was war.
Well, that's true.
And we were the Indians. And in fact, at some point, I can't remember the dates, at some point, the government and us, whoever us were, wanted to make all of Oklahoma chocolate, which would have made it even easier to drop a bomb and just, take all of us out, not just Tulsa, Oklahoma, but all of us, if they had managed to group us all into this one state or territory, which we were already occupying but spread out. But if they had condensed us all to that one particular area, then they would have gotten this over with, according to their plan. But they couldn't group us all together in that sense. Plus, because we don't get along that way, to be grouped all together.
Yeah, so depending on how you look at it, it's either fortunate or unfortunate.
Right, absolutely. So, things are, we've always had choice. That's the thing that we need to keep in mind, that we've always had choice. And some of us chose to fight with whomever. We've all had choices, no matter males, females, we've all had choices in this whole equation of while other people are invading us, the thing that made it easy and possible for these things to happen is the fact that we were already at war with one another, and so sure, a stranger can come in. It's not even necessary to divide and conquer. The divide already existed, just as it exists now. So when people are looking at today's politics and talking the nonsense of, we're being divided. We who? For starters, are you talking about you melanate or melanin impaired people are suddenly, seeing this division when in fact the division has been amongst us, the sun-kissed people on this land in Americapana forever, even before 16 whatever, So, again, there's something that brings us together to create these wonderful civilizations and things, but, it's hard to get 4 people together and for them all to agree 101%. So how is it that you can get thousands, hundreds, millions or whatever people together to agree 100%? You can't. So some stranger cruises in and they see that because they too know the division, come on, they were slaves or enslaved, themselves. They know the game, and plus, weren't the Moors, even in that sense, what was going on in Spain, to be honest, in 1492? What was happening in Spain? Can anybody tell me what was happening in Spain rather than what was happening here in 1492?
Well, Spain had just become, or just in transition to be Spain, because at that particular time it was called Hispaniola, which basically was a Latin word that meant the Iberian Peninsula. And King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were in process of having the throne handed to them by the Ottoman Turks, which got established in 1502. So they were also going through a whole bunch of stuff over there, which basically proves your point. Yeah.
Right. So, and then, weren't the Moors, didn't they finally gain their control from the Moors or something also around that time? I guess I don't understand why it is that we think that we were not involved in the tit for tat, the taking off each other's heads, the stabbing of each other in the backs. For me personally, I had to look at why my family behaved the way they did. And once I started looking at that, even as a kid, first I saw slavery behavioral patterns, on both sides, not just being submissive, but being extremely aggressive, and then I started thinking, well, why is this person or this section within my family, why are they so aggressive? I started looking at their financial backgrounds and things like that, their education and things like that. Then it started rooting back literally to, again, the Masons, and then to these civilized tribes, and to this nonsense, just this inner war. Then I started looking at, oh my God, the Creeks. Well, yeah, going after each other. Didn't even have to have someone else come into the picture. It was just very easy for them to go after what's there. You deal with what's there. You mistreat the people who are initially close to you first before you reach out and mistreat other people. So that's just the way I'm seeing it.
One of the things that we have been indoctrinated with through the schooling system is that we came from this one utopian society where we all got along before we were captured, enslaved, and we were taught to be different. We were taught to separate. We were taught to hate. Well, that's not a true statement. We were divided from the beginning. There's always been divides in families. That's nothing new. The colonizers just came in and capitalized on it, saw it, and took advantage of it.
Yes. Because they know division themselves, and at some point they had to come to some sort of agreement amongst themselves before they rolled up, sailed up, cruised up, however you want to call it, before they came here and did what they did. And the fact is that even when they were here, there were wars amongst them. The Spanish, the French, the British, they were fighting each other and then still recruiting us to help them fight each other, with giving us the promise that, hey, you join in and you help us fight the other folks, then we'll give you your freedom, we'll give you your land, we'll give you this, you'll be cool. And then still, no matter what, pockets are empty, bowls are empty, the water rights, this, that, and the other don't belong to us, the people who actually helped fight these folks who came on this land and warred amongst each other to gain this land. And the trippy thing to me right now is that these so-called Native Americans, because as you guys said, anybody that's born here is equivalent to a Native American. The ones that we are seeing in memes and things, here's the thing. The reservations, projects, and the plantations are all the same. The problem is that we didn't own the projects and we didn't own the plantations, and yet these folks that have stepped into our shoes own the reservations. And we're struggling with Section 8 and all that other nonsense.
You're absolutely right, Frida. And what we're finding is something that Bones on Sellout and James Knight has discovered, that even with the reservations, the way that it's structured, the way that their bylaws are structured, is that the individuals that are running the reservations, that sit on these boards, the money is coming in, but it's not being distributed evenly or even fairly. So you have people on these reservations that are living, if not at the same level of poverty as people on Section 8, but in many cases worse. They're alcohol. So I'm agreeing with what you're saying. So you're on the same sheet.
Yes, you are absolutely right. They're living in pure, total squalor, whereas a lot of that money is going back to Great Britain and places like that, because after all, it's an organization, and you have these Scottish and these Italian, Scottish, Irish, and British folks, as principal chiefs and things of that nature of the organizations in which we don't qualify blood quantum-wise to be members of, or we have to prove, when in fact they have to have no provisions whatsoever blood-wise, and even those that are on the reservations, they're living in squalor, but it's still their space. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we are really actually fighting for? Because dollars come and go. Don't you want your land?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. The land is important, and the goal is definitely to help people get their land, and if they choose to tie back into their tribes. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to jack, aka steal, borrow a phrase that you said that that I really like. You said melanin impaired. So that is my new word
Yeah.
for today. Melanin impaired, which is two words. So yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
borrow. I'm gonna borrow that. I'll get back later, but I'm gonna borrow it for today.
No, do your thing. See, I had to decide who I was going to be described as. I've been self-identifying since the third grade because of the simple fact that first day of school, they sent the little cards out. They sat us down at our desk. They wanted us to darken in those little squares and stuff, and I did actually darken in Native American. Well, my teacher got extremely pissed off at me, sent me to the office. All these white folks are yelling at me and stuff. They're angry at me. I don't know why they're being angry at me. I did what I was supposed to do. I did what I was asked to do. They told me I was colored. They told me I was Negro. They called my mom. I was afraid of my mom because the other thing is I was an abused kid, but I looked really well. Went shopping every Friday. No one suspected, but nonetheless. So I was super afraid that I was in trouble. She's coming to school. I just put Native American, but my mom actually came, and she came with other family members, and oddly enough, I could speak to just this week I spoke to 5 family members who literally had different racial identifications on their birth certificates. So that's a whole nother story. But, they came and, represented as Native Americans at the school. My mother has always been present in that way. And, but nonetheless, the school was not having it. I'm guessing, this is 1960s. I don't know if this was during another census change or whatever, but nonetheless, I had to go home and decide who I was going to be. Negro and colored were not sufficient for me. So I've literally been chocolate ever since. Now, I've lately grown into sun-kissed, melanin, Choctaw, whatever. But most of my life I've been chocolate. So, those folks were melanin impaired. They were pigment impaired. I yield.
As always, thank you. We definitely appreciate your insight and sharing this information because, again, it gives a perspective that we don't get to see or hear. We only read it from the perspective of what is taught or what is shown via, Wikipedia or via the archives, whether they be federal, state, or, some articles. So, as always,
right.
we thank you.
Yeah, no, I thank you because actually I sit back and I listen to, I've checked out a lot of groups of, folks who are now aware, but not just now newly aware, but folks who are sharing the awareness with other people. I think the interjection needs to be that we do exist and that we have existed and that we have had experience. So in a sense, I don't consider myself ancient or anything of that nature, but I do consider myself to have had some experiences since I was born in 1959 and all. But, even in regards to the Creeks, even when they did the little separation, the split off and stuff, honestly, those cities that were, as people call them, black, that split it off, who were actually Indians, they couldn't have survived had they not had skills and mindset to survive once they split off to individual cities in the early 1900s. They had cotton gins and things like that. They didn't just pick cotton, but not only that, the pigment impaired, the melanin impaired, they picked cotton. They had to work for their freedmen's coats. They were enslaved. And they were living illegally on Indian land. You guys have a wonderful day.
You do the same, Frida. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. That was Miss Frida, y'all.
Boom, 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 bam, boom. I'm just had to add the sound effects there.
That's what you're doing. Man, y'all ever notice how she has some impeccable timing? Always comes in at the right time. Much respect, Miss Frida. Definitely appreciate you. Man.
Never gave words to keep people in check. You know how your mama used to whoop you and she talking to you the whole time. And
oh my
she
gosh!
She kiss you on the cheek and say, "I love you, baby." And that's how she did this. For those that wasn't acting right, I hope y'all play that back. I think I'm about to take this little clip with the permission of Bounds and Chamish, and Brother No Sellout. I'm gonna take that clip. It's rising and yeah, because that was a whooping. And then she kissed you on the cheek and said, "I love you, baby. Gotta go."
You know, take what you need, do what you do. It's all good. So we were looking at the conflicts, and yo, man, it breaks them down. Starting with the Beaver Wars between the Iroquois and the French, who allied with the Algonquins. You got the Anglo-Powhatan Wars, 1610 through 1614, 1622 through 1632, 1644 through 1646. Then including the 1622 Jamestown Massacre between English colonists and the Powhatan Confederacy in the colony of Virginia. Then you got the Pequot War, 1636 through 1638 between the Pequot tribe and colonists from the Massachusetts Bay Colony and Connecticut Colony. So, yeah. So, you want me to continue to read the American Indian Wars, James?
Oh no, sir. We can move on. I just wanted to bring that out. If you notice that all of these so-called, they say, "Oh, this is this war, this is that war," and it's just one long continuous war. And you start tying in those dates, as Brother No Sellout says, timeline, man, timelines. You look at those timelines, and you'll notice a lot of these slave revolts fall within the timelines of these so-called conflicts. These were not limited local slave revolts. Because again, if you trying to rebel in the middle of a landmass and you don't know where you are, you're not thinking straight. You're just gonna kill off a whole bunch of people and think that they're gonna let you just survive. You had to know the landscape. So this starts tying in to the Underground Railroad. It had to be us, because how you gonna lead somebody to freedom, quote unquote, if you don't know where you are? And again, there was just as much people that were going north, as they say, that were headed south. But it gets back again to, like we talked about the other day, why is it that there was no great exodus from these lands, but you hear about all these slave revolts? But they didn't leave the land. But then they left under Jim Crow. Man, that's dumb. And then I'm gonna say this, and then I am gonna yield the mic. How this goes from 1609 to 1924. What was all this stuff that was going on at the time that we thought? Start looking up all of these towns that were bombed and destroyed in the 1920s. Well, I go back to so-called Black Wall Street. That falls under the umbrella from 1924. 1609 to 1924. It's not an accident. I yield the mic.
One of the things I want to encourage those of us to do is go to your archives, go to your state, your local, your county archives, and do exactly what Bones and James have been telling y'all. Get physical copies of your family's records. because the digital records are being manipulated. They're being changed out. But they can't manipulate the paper copies. You know, I know it's not convenient. I know you got other things you got to do. But it's important and it's imperative that it gets done. If we even need to, you know, set up some type of system where that could be done, you know, people come together, put some time together, set aside time based off your areas and do it for one another. That needs to be done. You know, a plan and a process can be put into place to get it taken care of. I mean, because you can make an excuse for the reason why you can't do something, but it's better to make a reason and a plan to do something. That's just my 2 cents on that. So let me go ahead and do a little bit more reading before we let you good people get on with your day. Let's see where we. Okay. Where was I at? Okay, this is where we're at. So I'm right here. I'll go ahead and start reading. It said these increasing territorial grabs westward into Creek territory, which included parts of Spanish Florida, coupled with the Louisiana Purchase, which neither the British nor Spanish recognized at the time, compelled the British and Spanish governments to strengthen existing alliances with the Creek. In 1810, following the occupation of Baton Rouge during the West Florida Rebellion, the United States sent an expeditionary force to occupy Mobile. I stopped there because I've been given a homework assignment by one James Flames. And it's interesting, this word right here, Baton Rouge. Does anybody know what that word means? The foundation of Baton Rouge, Louisiana dates to 1721 at the site of Baton Rouge, or RedStick, Muskogee boundary marker. It became the state capital of Louisiana in 1849. What did they call the Creek Indians that didn't want to totally assimilate into American society? They called them RedStick, right?
We.
But why is it here and it says a Muskogee boundary marker? Are they saying that these are the same people?
There you go.
You be thinking.
I be thinking. So then it goes on to talk about prehistory, meaning prefabrication. Human habitation in Baton Rouge area has been dated to about 8,000 years BC based on evidence found along the Mississippi, Comite, and Amite rivers. Earthwork mounds were built by hunter-gathering societies.
Wait. What? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Say what you got.
How many years ago? I'm just gonna ask, how many years ago? 8,000. Carry the 4 minus the 2 plus the when 22 season 19. Okay, so you talking about at least 10,000 years?
Yeah, 10,000 years ago.
Finished digging yet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
No. You go. It says were built by hunter-gathering societies in the Middle Archaic period from roughly the 4th millennium BC. Proto-Muskogean divided into its daughter languages by about 1000 BC. A cultural boundary between either side of Mobile Bay and Black Warrior River begins to appear between about 1200 BC and 500 BC. The Middle Gulf Formation stage, Eastern Muskogean, began to diversify internally in the first half of the first millennium AD. The early Muskogean nations were the bearers of the Mississippian culture, which formed around AD 800. By the time the Spanish made their first forays inland from the shores of the Gulf of Mexico in the early 16th century, many political centers of the Mississippians were already in decline or abandoned. The region at the time presenting as a collection of moderately sized native chiefdoms interspersed with autonomous villages and tribal groups. So this right here is proof that there were people here before there was any colonization.
And before the Vikings, because again, who were the Vikings? The Vikings had to fight somebody. They wasn't fighting themselves when they got over here.
Mm-hmm. But it also lets you know that this is one of the times where I don't see them trying to connect people from the Iberian Peninsula or from what they call that, from up north. What they call that piece of Iceland that they came from across? I forgot what it's called.
The Bering Strait.
The Bering Strait. So let's talk about the French period from 1699 to 1763, otherwise known as New France. French explorer Sieur de Iberville, Iberian, led an exploration party up the Mississippi River in 1699. The explorer saw a red pole marking the boundary between the Homa and the Bayogala tribal hunting grounds. The French name La Bâton Rouge, the Red Pole, is a translation of a native term rendered as Istroma, possibly a corruption of the Choctaw Itihuma Red Pole. Andre Joseph Pinnicot, a carpenter traveling with d'Iberville, published the first full-length account of the expedition in 1723, according to Pinnicot. So Istroma, that's the word you put in the back chat yesterday, James.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I just saw your messages earlier, and I'll send you more details on that as well.
Okay, thank you. It says from the Manchac, we went 5 leagues higher and found very high banks called equarts in the region, and in Savage called Istroma, which means RedStick, Baton Rouge, as at this place there is part painted red that the savages have sunk there to mark the line between the two nations, namely the land of the Bayogalas, which they were leaving, and the land of another nation. 30 leagues upstream from the Baton Rouge, named the Umas. Let me ask you a question. And this question goes out to everybody that's in the chat, and also that's part of the silent majority. Why would a savage mark a pole to distinguish between their lines, their hunting grounds, and somebody else's hunting grounds? If you was a savage, you wouldn't mark anything because you wouldn't care, right? No? Or am I just reading too much into it?
No, you're exactly right. And this is what the Europeans got, putting stakes in the ground. They got that from these people.
So if they were calling people savage and they copy something from a savage, what would that make them? Less than a savage? So they'd be sub-savage. Okay, never mind. See also,
What kind of sandwich?
Not a sub-sandwich. Not a. You know what? I'm not. See also RedStick for the ceremonial use of the red sticks among the Muskogee. The location of the red pole was presumably at Scotts Bluff, on what is now the campus of Southern University. Why does that not surprise me? It was reportedly a 30-foot high painted pole adorned with fish bones. The settlement of Baton Rouge by Europeans began in 1721, when a military post was established by French colonists. And I bet you Southern University has land grants attached to it.
And you know it.
But of course.
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I tell you right now.
And they just try to tell you like it's little bitty old sticks or whatever, but these were your totem poles.
That don't sound like no little sticks. Every totem pole I see was bigger than a stick. I'm just saying, what kind of stick they talking about? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little slow.
Cause you know how you see them like in the old West movies, and it'll point and it'll say Wichita, and it'll have so many miles written in chalk or whatever on these poles. That's where they were getting it from. Everything was already established. So we keep giving the people too much credit that they've conquered the world and put in their system when it was our system that was already in place. All they did was just remove us on paper and say, we came over here, we were dumb, we came over here on ships and shackles and contributed absolutely nothing to society. So it's telling you here that there were red sticks in the ground, these red holes in the ground that was separating the various tribes and saying, this is our land. So there was there could be no conflict, because hey, once you go past these set of poles here, these markers here, you're on someone else's territory. You're in another tribe's territory, period.
Here's a funny, you just made me think of something, James. They came over here, the colonizers came over here with their businesses. The first thing they had to establish was a trust with our ancestors. They established a trust. In establishing the trust, they created businesses with our ancestors. With those businesses they created with our ancestors, they started moving our ancestors into those businesses, thus creating these fake tribes. Then they shut down the original tribes, or hid the original tribes, assumed our ancestors' identity, and then created another tribe, aka colored, mulatto, and placed people in it. That's all they did.
Yes, sir. It is, again, the Americanized version of Pop Goes the Weasel. Read it again. Pop Goes the Weasel. The monkey thought it was all in fun. Pop goes the weasel. You giving them refuge. You showing them your ways, your traditions, your customs, and how to survive. Because again, their ships were crashing on the coast. Even long before the date that they talk about Thanksgiving with the Pilgrims, the Spaniards were telling you, hey, our ships were crashing. We were starving to death. They took us in. That's how we learned their ways. Again, you teach them your ways, teach them how to survive, how to take care of themselves, and they take over the land. That song, Pop Goes the Weasel, is everything that you were doing under the bartering system. Now they're charging you currency that you don't have. Because if they are the ones that establish the currency, how could you have it? So now you gotta pay for something that you would normally just trade off. They are the merchant, and we haven't figured it out yet. Because what did they give us that we already didn't have, outside of smallpox and all the rest of that stuff? What did they give us as far as to better who we were and who we are as a society that we already didn't have. We wasn't starving. Where did you read that Indians were starving to death? You hadn't found that yet, have you?
Nope.
Except for doing the conflict with them. Outside of that, where are you reading that they starved to death? Even when they threw in the little thing, oh, hunter-gatherers. Why are hunter-gatherers settling along the rivers? We go, like I said, we gonna get into deep. Don't put some more information in there, and you're gonna see these were not hunter-gatherers. They're finding these seashells and these pearls. They're gonna start finding all of that around the same area. That's why I said, look at LSU, look at Southern, look at Tulane. Start looking in that area, and you're gonna find out how old it is. They keep playing us for the okie doke. I yield the mic.
Wow. So, yeah. The good news is we know the game now. So all we gotta do is continue to do our genealogy and go back to the door that our ancestors got escorted out, drug out, killed out, tricked out, however you want to label it. You got to go back through those doors, because if not, we're going to continue to inherit the debt of our ancestors, because that's what they gave. That's the only thing that they gave our ancestors was debt. And we've been paying ever since. Matter of fact, let me look up that word debt, the etymology of debt. Let's see what that really means. Let's see. Alright, I found it, so I'm going to pull it up on the screen. Give me a few minutes. A few seconds, excuse me. Alright. This is according to etymologyonline.com. It reads, from the 1300s, debt, anything owned or due from one person to another, a liability or obligation to pay or render something to another. From Old French, dete, dette, from Latin, detum, thing owed. Neuter past participle of debere, to owe. Originally, keep something away from someone. From day, away. Plus habere, to have. Pa root is gab, to give or receive. Meaning state of being under obligation to make payment is from the mid 14th century. Restored spelling after 1400 in Middle English. Debt, D-E-B-T, of the body. Was that which spouse owes to each other or sexual intercourse. That's the one thing that we inherited that we did not have when the Europeans came over here. We didn't have debt. And that's what this whole country is involved in now. We owe, the government owes. That's what our system is based off of, debt. Let's see, that's the power root. Also, Geb, Proto-Indo-European root meaning to give or receive. The basic sense of root probably is to hold, which can be either an offering or in taking. And other forms of it are, it shows you. It also says, here it says, it is a hypothetical source of evidence for its existence is provided by. So Sanskrit is Gavesati, hand, forearm. Latin, habere, to have, hold, possess. Habitus, condition, demeanor, appearance, dress. Old Irish, gaibim, to take, hold, I have. Gabal, act of taking. Lithuanian, gabana, armful. Gabaditi, to remove. Gothic, gabe, riches. Old North, gefa, to give. We gave them land, they gave us debt. The act of taking. So, that's the one thing we inherited, but that they gave us, that we didn't have before they got here. That doesn't open your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and women of all ages. I don't know what to tell you. So, it's about that time for us to get on up out of here and let you go be productive as you always are throughout your day. And with the people that you hold near and dear to your hearts. No sellouts. Anything that you want to say before we let the good people go?
Not much. Just shout out to everybody that showed up today for another great Grand Rising show. Thanks to the people. Thanks to the panel. Links in the chat. If you need to contact us. We out here. Peace, y'all.
James Flame, Choctaw Jimmy, what you got for the good people before we head on up out of here?
It's been another great one. I appreciate those in the chat. I apologize I didn't get an opportunity to correspond as much as I would like. I've been kind of on the move, but thank you all once again for coming out. You could have been anywhere else here on the planet, but you chose to stop by here. So I greatly appreciate the most astute chat in the cosmos. Also to Brother Bones, mixing and scratching back there on those turntables. I appreciate you. They mixologists now. They're not DJs anymore. They're mixologists. So to Babes, aka Cobb, for unmuting himself, the mixologist out there. To Brother No Sellout, again, that eject button, you just keep knocking them out the box, even in the middle of the night, still popping up, ejecting people, making people quit their live streams in the middle of the night in mid-sentence.
That was not me. That was not at all.
Just like that, he was gone. Oh man,
you got Sopranos at the end of mid-sentence.
Walking down the street, fade to black.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Man, he just hung up.
Didn't even say, I'm done, nothing, just go. To Brother Temis, man, I appreciate you more than you will ever know, sir. I don't think people realize when you're able to navigate a show for hours, I don't think people understand the work and the research that goes behind that to make things flow so smoothly. I know I'm telling on myself a little bit, but back in the day when I called myself trying to be a host of a radio show, and there was several of us, it was woo man, it was like the Wu-Tang Clan, and that was doing it once a week. So doing all of that with all the people once a week, can you imagine only doing that times 5 or 6? And we only had an hour when we did our programs back in the day. So the things that go on behind the scene, the research, I don't think people really understand, because I think some people think, just coming in and shooting from the hip, but there's a lot of work, a lot of sweat equity that goes into that. So I appreciate you, Brother Thomas, for that. To Brother Copper Indio, always dropping those nuggets in the back chat. We appreciate you. To Brother Kerry, the carpenter. He truly is the carpenter. Not to be confused with the carpenters you sing that song in the 70s, but he's actually a carpenter. So I said people are doing things. It's more than just people just coming on here and y'all think, oh man, they just clowning and having a good time or whatever, but it's actually, work is being put in. And when you see people actually see the fruits of their labor, and you can sit on top of the hill, and I know this is probably a bad analogy, but like Thanos, when he sat on top of the hill and he exhaled, when you see all the greatness that you've done. So it's because it's not just about you, it's about the generations that are to come. So Brother Kerry, keep doing what you're doing, keep pushing on. The Lady Free, you've heard that saying of the spirit of 76. Well, she's the spirit of A2. So shout out to Lady Free out there. I know you're listening. I see you. I feel you. So appreciate all the work that she does as well, because again, if something has no spirit, it is lifeless. Now you can take that for what it's worth, but I don't know anything that's spiritless that has life. It can move, things can move, but and that's a huge difference. So what I would like to share in parting is this. I hope everyone can hear me because I had a call coming in and I had to get rid of it. But I wanted to share this. As you keep finding out more and more and more what actually happened, because some people say, well, they spending all this time on talking about what happened in the past, but that's not going to change anything. Au contraire, my friend. When you find out who you are, and when you find out what happened to you, when I say you, because you're still in your father's loins, so what happened to you is to make sure it doesn't happen to the next generation. We can't just keep telling people, oh, well, this happened, and I don't know how that happened, and the man did this, and the man did that. Well, how did it happen? Because if we're not setting the blueprint in order to build, then shame on us. Shame on us for doing that. To Miss Frida for calling in, dropping those nuggets as well, being a part of the generation when they had you to switch over, when you label who you are as an Indian, and they try to make you put down that you black, Negro, and colored, and all of the above. This is the game that they play, because why did they get so angry with her? You got to think about it. Why is there anger behind that? And you notice, if anything that certain people are angry about, I mean really angry about, chances are there's something you're supposed to be doing. Because no one's fighting the Back to Africa push, are they? Is there any anger behind that? Besides us that know that we belong here? But is anybody else really angry about this quote unquote Monroe Doctrine, the Go Back to Africa movement? Why aren't they? I wonder why. Well, I'm gonna say this because I done gone on long enough. Just keep doing the research, following the breadcrumbs. We're gonna put our heads to bed because we're gonna start discussing voodoo and who are these 7 spirits of voodoo and where it came from. Let's stop playing. With that, I forgot. I'd be remiss if I didn't. Remember, find out who you are. You can't find out who you are unless you know where you are going. I'll say that again. You got to understand who you are to know where you are going. Have you ever seen a boxer get hit? And when he gets hit in that ear, and all of a sudden he's dazed, has no clue, no sense of direction. When you don't know who you are, it's impossible for you to know where you are going. And to all of those that keep doubting, and you don't understand who you are, where you are, how did you get there? But no sellout. Has there been any emails dropped? You got any emails? Anybody complaining? Anybody protesting? Oh, I think he slammed his mic down. Or probably mic got hot with all the to those in the chat, like I say, keep going, keep researching, and you're gonna find out who the RedStick are. You're gonna find out who these Creek are. You're gonna find out why they changed the name and why they tried to change up the game. Why did this name change? And you're gonna find out the people that say they're first are really in second. In the words of that great thespian, Nelly, what does it take to be number one? Because 2 is not a winner, and 3 nobody remembers. So you the first of what? The first of the second place? I'm out this cotton picking mic.
You inhaling all that hot air.
What?
I ain't saying nothing.
I'm not
follow a Nelly quote.
Yeah, I know. I'm the mic is sizzling, y'all. If y'all can't hear it, it's sizzling. I'm not even going down there and put my face down there by the mic. I don't know if I can take the radiation burn, so I'm just gonna yell at the mic from. I'm standing on the stage, yelling at the mic. That's what y'all hear right now. So
the mic is one of them. The mic is one of them skillets from Chili's that walk past your table.
Yeah.
Just snapping, crackling, and popping.
Yep. Smoke everywhere. Again, I want to say shout out and thank you to the new subscribers. Want to give a shout out to the Texas Assembly silent majority. We appreciate you and all you do for your community, for your relatives. And to the best chat on earth, you know what it is. You know how we get down. We appreciate you for making sure we stay in check, we stay on the ball, and we provide them sauces or them sauces that Two Division said. You know, we trying to give you them Heinz 57 sauces. See how that work? To A2. To A2. Texas Assembly, the nonprofit. All the work that's put in. There are no big players in the Texas Assembly. Everybody has a major role, and everybody is appreciated. And I've sat on a lot of boards, but I get no greater pleasure than being able to work with individuals that are part of a Texas Assembly. So I thank everyone that do what they do. From Bones, to No Sellout, to his family, Bones and his family, James and his family, LJ Free, Carrie, Copper Indio, Danielle Jeffers, just everybody. Y'all make what I do fun, man. For real. And just being able to have the impact that we have as a nonprofit, and just being able to do what we're doing, not just in our area, but trying to reach out and help all the areas through YouTube. One thing I want to point out is that as we continue to share this information, expose this information on YouTube, you do realize, and I hope everyone can hear my voice, realize that this platform and platforms like it that are exposing information is not going to be able to sustain itself on YouTube because of the changing laws, the changing rules, and the changing regulations, which is the reason why we put everything on our own website. And I would encourage that everybody that has a YouTube platform do the same thing, because you don't own any of the material on YouTube. If you don't believe me, check the terms and agreement. That's why we record all of our shows, because at any particular point in time, should YouTube decide to shut it down or remove access, all that work that was done, we can't access it. So I had to say this. If nothing else, remember this. There needs to be a forum for you to place your work. You don't have to place it on our forum. You don't have to place it on our website. But please, all the research that you've done and all the research that you do, make sure you have a place to put it that you own, that can't no one take it. You know, our forum is always open and it's available, and you retain 100% ownership. But if you choose not to use our forum, please make sure that you have a forum for all of your downloaded videos, articles, and all that stuff, that you can access it offline. Because if YouTube decides, for whatever reason, to have another quote-unquote experiment and shut down for 24 hours, and then all of a sudden it comes back up and all your information is gone, then what you gonna do? That's equivalent to a resource center burning down. You do realize that, right? That's equivalent to a building being flooded and ruined all the paperwork. You do realize that, right? So make sure all your precious research that you've done and spent so much time investing in can be accessed by you offline. Because if not, it could be taken away a lot faster than what water or fire could ever do. And I'm not bashing YouTube or anything like that. I'm just letting people know that we don't own this material on YouTube unless you own the material on another platform that you own. So keep that in mind. And like Bones always says, man, we got to take this information that's provided to us and we have to use it. We have to use it to better not only ourselves, but we have to better our community, better our tribes, and eventually better the nation. Because what's the point of us getting together and doing all this information? What's the point of, us being in the back chats or us being on the Zoom calls and me picking James' brain or building with Bones or building with No Sellout or Free or Copper or Carrie or Danielle or anybody that we build with to get this information out, and the work that you guys do, if no one is going to actually do anything with the information? Preparation without action is nothing more than a paused possibility. Potential wasted. So let's not waste this potential. Let's not waste this energy. Let's continue to put everything in action. Do a little bit every day that you can. If that means you got to get up 15 minutes earlier or go to bed 15 minutes later, the question you need to ask yourself when you have to make that decision is, are the next 7 generations worth it? If the answer is yes, then you know what you need to do. If the answer is no, then continue what you're doing. I'm going to have to sign off for Bones because he has some other stuff he had to take care of. It's always a pleasure when we get to kick up the relatives. And until next time, on the next Grand Rising show, we look forward to being that bridge between the history and our story and finding out who we are, because we are. And on that note, I leave you with peace.
Shout out to Charlie Rock and Roll and his action, sports, and news weather program that comes on in the mornings.
Yeah, that's yeah. Peace, y'all.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.